Hey Horse World! This week we're giving you something special. A free 3-day, 5-part guided ride series with 5-star eventer and Grand Prix Dressage rider Laine Ashker. All about building a better, more balanced canter. In this episode, we're sharing the first part of that series. You might remember hearing from Laine on No Stupid Questions earlier this year. After that episode, so many of you told us you wanted more. You wanted to go deeper with Laine, to hear more of her training philosophy, and to ride with her, not just learn from her. Well, that's exactly what this guided ride series offers. Laine's going to help you understand what balance really means, how to build it without relying on gadgets or shortcuts, and how to feel it in your own body and your horse's stride. And the best part, you can access the full series for free. Just head to the link in the show notes. Here's what's included: lunging sessions that develop self-carriage, dressage work focused on transitions and half-halts, jumping grid work that strengthens rhythm and rideability. Because a balanced horse is a safer, happier, and more successful partner, and Laine will help you get there, one ride at a time.
Welcome to Equestrian Masterclass Guided Rides.
Hey guys, Laine Ashker here. I'm a 5-star event rider and Grand Prix dressage rider, and I'm going to talk to you guys and give you a little introduction about our Building a Better Canter series. In this training program, I'm going to give you a little bit of context in the progressions that I've laid out for you in building this better balance. It can go through to all of your gaits, from the walk to the trot to the canter. We'll be focusing primarily on the canter, but you can make all these exercises work for you at the smaller gaits if you or your horse are not quite there yet in their training. Okay. So what is the definition of balance? Balance is an even distribution of weight, which enables your horse to remain upright and steady. Honestly, that definition goes through and rings true to anything in life, right? We all are striving for balance in our life, so on and so forth. But let's talk about why balance is so important, specifically in horseback riding, okay? So if you're in a dressage test, if you're doing cross country, if you're doing show jumping, right? A horse that is in balance has cadence in their walk, trot, and canter, has an even rhythm, is regular behind, not uneven behind in the medium gaits. These horses tend to score better than the horses that are out of balance. For instance, if you go into an upward, your horse's ears remain level. When you go into a downward, your horse doesn't dive into the forehand, okay? Judges appreciate and like a horse that is lighter in their front end, right? This is a balanced horse. In the cross, you want to have a horse that's safer cross country, that you can go at the speed in which you're going, right? In which the level that you're tackling, and not have to change it so much. The fastest horses in the world on the cross country are the horses whose rhythm rarely changes from the beginning to the end. So they don't go really fast in between and really slow at the jumps, because that eats up not only time, but the horse and the rider's energy. Okay. So for cross country, a balanced horse just results in a horse that's going to be generally faster in the cross country, because you're not changing the pace, right? And the balance of the horse. Sorry to sound repetitive. In the show jumping, you're going to have cleaner rounds. And it really doesn't matter if you have a little bit of a miss, but if your horse is in a good canter, in a good place to jump the jump, he's going to jump it cleanly. Okay. Most times as professional riders, we're really good at recreating that balance the second the horses land. It's not that we see a perfect distance every time. The distance just comes up because our horses tend to be in a better balance than people that are still learning, right? So think of it that way. In the upcoming mini training program of Building a Better Canter series, we're going to have 3 days of work. We're going to break it down for you and how to create a better balance, starting with lunging. I'm a huge fan of lunging. I lunge my horses usually once a week. I've got horses of all experience level. I have off the track thoroughbreds. I have Grand Prix dressage horses. And I believe so much in lunging because if the horse cannot balance with the rider without a rider on his back, then how the heck is he going to balance with the rider on his back, right? So the lunge line takes away the rider. Usually I have side reins. However, I want to stress to you in that bit, I always begin my lunging without side reins. Not until my horses stretch on their own on the lunge line will I put the side reins on. I feel sometimes that we can prematurely put side reins on the horse, and then we're just shifting the balance to the forehand because they never knew self-carriage in the first place. So remember, before you start this series, try to spend a little bit of time in lunging your horse. The walk, the trot, you can include a little bit of the canter and see if your horse, as you push them forward, can begin stretching on their own so that they find their own balance as opposed to putting the side reins on too quickly and making your horse kind of dump onto the forehand. So lunging is a great, great way to create a better balance. The next day is through dressage. Throughout this work, we will be using tools, exercises in the walk, the trot, and the canter to help you guys understand the skill set of creating a better balance. We're going to talk about upwards, downwards, where your horse's head placement should be, how it should feel, right? When you are riding in the dressage, a balanced horse should feel light and airy in your hand. He shouldn't feel heavy in your hand. He should be listening to your seat aids, right? He should be light off of your leg aids. We're going to talk about that. We're going to go through a bunch of different exercises so that you guys can really hone in and feel that throughout the course of your dressage work. On the final day of our series, we're going to talk about some grid work. So over jumps balancing, right? It's one of my grid of the days. I really love it. I use it for horses of all levels. I will talk to you about how you can revise it if you don't have enough room or if you're a little bit more inexperienced or your horse is inexperienced where you should start, right? But this grid work will help you feel over the jumps how to balance, right? A horse that is a balanced horse should not get quicker, should not get slower, but should remain in the same frame, the same rhythm to the jumps, especially to jump a clear round. So we talked about the why. Why balance your horse? Let's talk about the when. When do we balance our horse? So in the lunging, you're going to feel that your lunge line is basically your rein, right? Attached to the horse's mouth. Your lunge whip will be like your leg. So as you progress, as your horse begins to stretch, you can incorporate some pulls if you want to do a little bit of pull work with your horse. But as your horse gets a little bit quick, right, you're going to think of squeezing the lunge line, right? To really think of asking your horse to wait and start to carry and load behind. Okay. Especially you'll notice that as you add the side reins to your work. In your dressage work, when do we want to balance our horse? Well, first and foremost, before every transition. And I do a lot of transitions with my horses. So for instance, when I'm riding one horse in a 45-minute session, I will do over 100 transitions, right? These transitions consistently are rebalancing my horse, right? So if your horse is tripping in front, tripping behind, he or she is out of balance. So you're going to think of before every transition, before you change bending, before you go into a leg yield, before you go into a canter upward, you want to take what we call is a half-halt. Okay. So the half-halt on the lunge line would have been your squeezing of the line or your pushing with your lunge whip, not to be mistaken with like cracking the whip. It's just a gentle push behind the horse's bottom. But in the dressage work, your half-halt is comprised of your leg to your seat to your hand. Now notice how I explain that, you guys. I didn't go hand to seat to leg. I'm thinking of always riding my horse from the hind end, creating that motor, pushing he or she into my hand. Okay. The weight in your hand should be consistent. You should feel anywhere from 1 to 3 pounds, right? You don't want to have nothing, but you also don't want to have too much. It's like a Goldilocks effect. I always like to think of my horses when I'm riding them is I'm on a date. And I wouldn't want, if I was really into this guy and I was on a date, I wouldn't want him to drop my hand out of nowhere. It's the same thing when you're riding in the dressage, okay? So you want to think of consistently powering your horse's motor, pushing he or she from behind so that he in turn puts weight in your hand. And it's the amount of weight that you want, okay? So that every stride you think of the horse's front end getting a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter. That half-halt, again, which comes from the lower leg, your calf, a quiet leg, to your squeezing of your bottom, your seat, right, to your hand is so, so important. Remember, if a horse can feel a tiny little fly, and these horses range from anywhere from 1,000 pounds to 1,400, then they can absolutely feel your seat, your leg, and your hand, okay? Really important. The last is in the jumping. When do we want to balance? A lot of times I like to half halt. It's something called a point of turn. And in this point of turn, as you're coming out of the turn, you can decide whether when you see the jump, am I going to accelerate to get to the jump? Am I going to add to get to the jump, or I'm going to wait? This is the point in time where you take your half halt, okay? So that your horse is in the place and the condition to be able to do one of those three options. Also, when I land from a jump, if I'm in a related distance, I usually take a half halt to sort of regather my knitting and put my horse's balance back onto his hind leg so he can jump out of the element. Now, it's a little bit different if you're building bounces, because bounces are cool. They always ask your horse to rebalance every step because there's no stride in between. When there are strides in between, you want to think of creating that balance, taking those half halts on the landing stride. And as you'll see in our work on the third day, you will start to feel where those half halts are based on where your cavaletti is placed. Remember, every horse and rider are on their own journey. So where I might be demonstrating a canter to trot to a walk or a shoulder out to a canter, you may be in a different place. So try to revise the exercises based on where you and your horse are in your training. If I have a horse that's directly off the track, I'm going to spend a lot of time with he or she on the lunge without side reins, because the last thing I want to do is put that balance in the horse's mouth when they were on the track, they only knew to go on the forehand because that's how they got faster, right? How do you think jockeys make horses go faster on the track? Well, they balance on their mouth. They pull back so then the horse can lean on the jockey. We don't want that feeling, right? We want lightness. So it's going to take a little bit of time, not contraptions, but time to get your horse to understand that balance, especially if they're a horse that's off the track where their balance was only on the forehand and flat out. My goal for each and every one of you is that through this mini series, you'll have at least felt and experienced one time in each of the days a better balance in your gaits. Whether you're lunging without side reins or with side reins, whether you're doing training level to fourth level dressage, or whether you're trotting in the grid or cantering into the grid. These exercises that I'm giving you throughout this series should be optimal in having you, but not only you, but your horse understand a better balance, where his hind legs are, a softer horse in the bridle, a horse that has a better jump. Similarly, you as a rider creating a better posture, a better position, a more supportive position to recreate that balance over and over again. I hope you guys enjoy this journey that we take over the next 3 days. I am honored to do it with you. Cheers.